given us. We want to thank you for the opportunity to come out here tonight. We just want to pray for these council members as we conduct the business of the village. Just grant them wisdom. I want to thank you, Father, for our residents, and just pray blessings for them as well. We love and praise you in your name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And thank you, Council, for being here. Mr. Gilpin, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Coogan? Here. Ms. Shepherd?
Here.
Ms. Hallfield?
Here.
Ms. Ross?
Here.
Mr. Noble?
Here. Thank you. Next is our approval of our meetings. We have our regular business meeting on January 10th, 2019. Anybody got any corrections or amendments to those minutes? If not, I'd entertain a motion to accept them as read.
I move we accept the minutes of January the 10th, 2019 as written.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Do I hear a second?
I second that.
Thank you, Mr. Coogan. Would you call the roll, please, Mr. Gilpin?
Ms. Brown?
Here. Oh, yes.
Mr. Coogan? Yes. Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble? Yes.
And now the minutes for our special call January 23rd, 2019 meeting. Any corrections or amendments for that meeting? If not, I'd entertain a motion to accept those as read.
I move we accept January 23rd, 2019 meeting minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Hallfield. Do I hear a second?
I second that.
Thank you, Mr. Coogan. Would you call the roll, please, Mr. Gilpin?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan? Yes. Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble? Yes.
Any communications tonight, Mr. Dodson?
There are none.
All right, that brings us to public input. Is there any public input this evening?
Input about what? About the meeting tonight?
If you have any public input, step up here, Zach, if you have something to say.
Well, I don't want to.
Okay. Having seen that, we'll move on to our administration and committee reports. First, it's my turn. We have a mayor's court report for the month of January of 2019. Total revenue of $2,960, with $2,198 going to the village, $736.50 to the state, and $25.50 to the county. I've also set the village-wide yard sale dates for May 17th, 18th, and 19th, July 19th, 20th, and 21st, and September 20th, 21st, and 22nd. It is a week later than normal, but there was a large hue and cry to move it from Mother's Day weekend. We typically had it on Mother's Day weekend, so it'll be basically the third Saturday of those months, May, July, and September. Also wanted to say on the way up here tonight, I stopped into our newest business in town, Cakes and Karaoke. She provided these for council to partake in, and her name is Lynette Bowman, and she's actually been in business since 2007. She was booming up there tonight. She was churning out the cupcakes, so it looked and smelled delicious, and these do too. I might bust my diet tonight and try one of these. But I was curious where the karaoke thing came from, but she does wedding, she does the DJing for weddings too, so that's where that comes from. So I didn't get the karaoke part, but now I do. So it was nice talking to her, and she is talking about having a grand opening sometime in July. She opened on Tuesday. So if you get a chance, stop in there. She had some delicious looking cakes and cupcakes. So, and you all have to take one of these before you go. That is all I have. Village Administrator, Mr. Dotson.
Thank you. We do have legislation on later this evening for an amendment to our electric contract. So that will extend us for 3 years, 2025, 26, and 27. Our last year we had was our high year as far as the bulk on energy. We were at 50/30. For the next 3 years we're at 48.95, and then we go to 46.25 through 2024. This extension period will be dropping to 42.65, so we're about there, depending on where it is when we lock. So I would ask that be considered in legislation. Also, I filed the CDBG grant for the stormwater on North Charity Street. As you know, we just finished the Bone and Union Street project. That was OPWC. We also applied for OPWC for East Street stormwater repairs, and this is the third section of that. It's what we assume was the least pertinent of the three, but I did attach pictures, and I can scroll through those. There's on the screen, yeah. So this is it's an old culvert. It's a lot of this is creek rock that was laid up years and years ago, and there are multiple culverts coming into this at irregular angles. This is not a 90-degree angle perpendicular to the street, so while our Public Works Department is fully capable of replacing a simple culvert, this is not what we would call a simple. This will require engineering, and it will be required to be bid out. So we have applied for CDBG funding to assist us with that. It was engineering quote of $238,000, and we put in a $40,000 match for that. So hopefully we will be considered for this, but these are just some pictures of the project. This is on up towards Plain. So this project will go from roughly Plain Street north on Cherry to Bone Street. So this is a culvert that's collapsed. That may or may not be a water heater jacket. But these barriers there have pretty much just rotted to the point where they're just sitting. One is leaning pretty bad, so certainly past its life expectancy, and we're hoping to get the grant to replace it. That's a culvert that was put in at some point on Bone and Charity, and that's just not deep enough to work there, so that'll require some engineering to make that work. And you can see where the water's getting up on the roadway and causing a failure of the pavement as well. So we will find out about that midpoint 2019. This would be at the earliest a 2020 project. Cherry Street is a county street, a county road, but we are required to maintain the culverts. This is not large enough to be considered a bridge. And I think that's all I have.
All right, thanks, Mr. Dodson. Fiscal Officer, Mr. Gilpin.
Just a couple quick things. I did submit the 2018 annual financial report to the State Auditor's Office, I think, on the last day or so of January. Now I'm playing catch up on a lot of work that had to sit while I was going through that process, so hopefully in the next week I'll be caught up and back to normal. And the only other thing I had is one report that I am registered to attend the Local Government Officials Conference, which is earlier this year. It's on March 7th and 8th in Columbus. I'll be attending that to fulfill my annual continuing education requirements.
All right.
And that's it.
Thanks, Mr. Gilpin. Solicitor, Ms. Supinger.
No report tonight, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Chief Plank.
For the month of January, 173 calls answered, 37 offense reports, 2 incident reports, 14 crashes, 26 citations, 34 warnings, 71 special details. We assisted other departments 37 times. We had adult misdemeanor arrest of 14. We had adult arrest of 12, but the variation there is 2, obviously. Juvenile arrest, we had 2 of those were misdemeanor. Looks like another one was a felony arrest. And then we had 96 times we checked a business, and 215 student contacts, 64 staff contacts, 7 parent contacts at school, and we had 2 presentation meetings and 1 public assistance. And that's all I have.
All right, thanks, Chief. Safety Committee, Ms. Harville.
The Safety Committee met on February 5th, and where we discussed the town hall meeting coming up, which we had last night. Mayor's Court's non-payments are trying to be collected. There is a code book for some laws for our police officers that will need to be approved by full council. talked about our new police car was ready to be picked up. Our property room is going to need to be taken care of before Chief retires. And we discussed the arrangements for Officer Brewer's funeral and visitation, and our sympathies to both Officer Brewer's family, it's Deputy Brewer, Officer Lee's family, and also to our own Corporal Breeze, who had lost his father. So that was all. We have not made another meeting yet, as of yet.
All right, thanks, Ms. Sullivan. Finance Committee Chair, Ms. Shepherd.
We met on February the 5th in council chambers at 5:30, and we discussed at length, as Mr. Gilpin has always spoken to, the annual financial report, which is kind of dull reading, but very necessary reading. And we also are bringing forth to council an ordinance to allow Mr. Dotson to enter into a contract for our electric rate. So we'll be voting on that later. And I think that's it.
All right. Parks and Village Properties, Mr. Coogan.
We met on the 11th of February at 5:30, and we discussed the Grant Memorial Building, which the keys have been turned over on, and we're in the process of installing a furnace over there right now to the grateful folks over there that took the building off of our hands and off the village coffers. We discussed the veterans banners and posting of such in the village. We had a couple questions before we can actually bring this to council, and we're still in the process of discussion for next month. I did find out one answer, that if the banners and the posting materials are actually busted, the Legion is responsible for them, and they will cover the cost of that. Burke Park playground equipment has been installed, and we're still waiting for the weather to clear up and things to get better so we can lay mulch and whatever. And we discussed the ODOT striping and loss of handicap spots along the main boulevard. We're still in the process of trying to get those folks to listen a little bit more deeply on that issue. And the Community Development Block Grant, which Mr. Dodson discussed and showed pictures of, that's a very important project, and it's just a small part of all the projects that are going on or need to go on in this village, because we got a lot of bad roads and culverts. And on top of this, we discussed the easements along the main boulevard here for the striping when they go through and do the striping and whatnot. There seems to be a little bit of conflict in there between the business owners and some of the people around here. So we need to resolve those issues, and through our solicitor and whoever else, and then from that point move on. We're going to be discussing that continuously as well, mainly because ODOT is, kind of have their own agenda, and we have to work through their agenda and try to build it from there. We reset our next meeting to the 11th of next month, of March, and it will be at 5:30, if you're interested in attending.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Coogan. Burke Trust, Ms. Ross.
We have not met yet this year. I believe we were supposed to set a meeting, though, at tonight's meeting. Have you had any?
Yeah, we have, all but one of the members of the Burke Trust Commission are available for the 28th, so I would like to set it for the 28th. And I believe, did you check with, is the representative, he thought he would be available?
He said he thought he could do the 26th or the 28th. He asked us to get back with them once we had our date set.
February?
February 28th.
Is that our joint meeting?
Yes.
Good.
What time did everyone say? It was what time?
I think 6:30 maybe.
Okay.
Give the people from Cincinnati time to get out.
Let's do 6 o'clock, and then if they can't get here till 6:30, at least we can reorganize or do what we need to do.
That'll work.
True.
So 6 p.m. on February 28th for the Burke Trust.
Yes.
Well, that's for all of us, right?
Well, it's Burke Trust Committee and the Burke Trust Commission and the representatives from the bank.
Okay.
And I believe that's it.
All right, thanks. Personnel Committee, Ms. Brown.
We have not met, and at this time, we don't have a need to meet.
Okay. And Ms. Brown, we call the members.
Oh, it's me.
Yeah.
First, happy Valentine's Day to everybody in the audience. Not sure if this was your plan on how to spend Valentine's Day, but some people like chocolates. And also, thanks for attending. I know most of you are probably here because of the income tax versus the levy issue that apparently was posted on Facebook today. I did have these handouts ready for the meeting last night, and you are more than welcome to take some. I printed a ton. We didn't have a ton of attendance, but it was a pretty good turnout and a great meeting, and we plan to continue with those. I wanted to say my condolences to Officer Breeze and his family with their loss. To Officer Lee's family, I want to say my condolences, and also I want to remind everybody that there are avenues to donate to help that family out with their children and everybody that's left behind. Also, for Deputy Brewer's family, my condolences to them, and also there are many fundraisers to help them out as a way to show your support for the family, even if it's just praying, even if it's just I'm thinking of you, even if it's just a birthday card for the child. It's always nice to know that you're cared about when you're going through a tragedy like that. The other thing that I have is, you know, it's not like I thought it was when I was sitting in your chair when I got up here. I will admit that wholeheartedly. I will admit that I thought it was just as simple as we'll just fire everybody who makes a lot of money, we'll be able to pay for cops, it'll be okay, or there's money somewhere you're not telling me about, but it's not like that. It's not what I thought it was going to be, and I'm sure that if any of you ever get the opportunity to sit in this chair, it would not be what you thought it was going to be either. You learn a lot, and you have to eat a little bit of crow and say, hey, I was wrong, there is no free cops. I can't give you free cops. Unfortunately, people like to get paid, and I can't blame them because there's only a few professions where you have a risk of dying in. Firefighters, military, and police officers of any, whether it be sheriff's deputies or local cops. And I can't blame them for wanting to be paid. And I can tell you that if you look at our pay scale compared to what, say, a customer service rep makes, I wouldn't risk my life. So it is not an easy decision either way that we go with a tax, because a levy hurts people just like an income tax hurts people. And I don't take that lightly. Currently, I'm paying 3 sets of bills. I pay my rent, I pay my homeowner's stuff that I'm fixing up the house, I pay for a piece of land where I have to clean up some stuff there, and I don't cut my hair, my bangs, nobody cuts my hair this bad. So when I get a haircut, it's because they got 12 inches of hair, and Great Clips will send it to Locks of Love for free. So I do pinch my pennies just like everybody else, and I do know that it is a burden, no matter what I do, to somebody, and I understand that. Just so that you're a little bit aware, to fully fund the police, I believe it would have been like 11 mil levy that would be needed. To be close to what we were at with the income tax, it would have been an 8.6 mil levy. So we were nowhere near funding the police with a 4 mil levy. And I have invited every single person in this community to tell me if I'm missing something and there are free cops, I will give you the credit. Heck, I'll be the one who commissions the statue of you to go out in the middle of town here. And I do appreciate everybody's opinion, and I take it seriously, and it weighs heavy on me whether it be something I agree with or something I disagree with, because I know people struggle in this village. I know you do, because I struggle in this village. But we do have crime, and we do have people that depend on it, and we do have people that are victims of domestic violence, and all these people depend on our police to be there when they need them. I get stopped in church by people who live in Bethel Woods who are begging me for police, because whether I like it or not, when I signed on for this role, I took the oath to say that I would do what has to be done, and that's the way they look at it. And I can say that I could have took the easy way out. I could have sold to BP, and I could have been like, see you, I don't even have to vote on this issue, and it was quite tempting. But I made a commitment to you, and this is my home. You guys are my neighbors. And I stuck with that. And it might not have been the most fiscally responsible decision. If you know anybody needs a piece of liver, again, I'm paying 3 sets of bills. But it was my promise to you to serve for 4 years. After 4 years, you guys can do with me what you will. You know, I mean, it's just the bottom line. But I have to be able to sleep at night. No matter which way I go, it's hard to sleep because I know I've either hurt a homeowner or I've hurt a working person who doesn't pay the levy. So I just want you to know that nobody up here has taken it lightly. And also go get some of the new businesses we have. We have cakes. We have a liquidation store where they sell off of skids, I believe. And we also have a new little store off on Charity, I believe, that sells kind of like Yesterday's News, I think is what it's called. And also the 125 Creation Station always has really cute stuff. So pick your wife up something for Valentine's Day when you leave here. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ms. Brown. Mr. Coogan?
Well, I wanted to say that we had a very productive meeting last night at the town hall, our first town hall. I wanted for actually a lot of you folks to be there because we discussed a lot of very sensitive issues that were near and dear to me, and they're very near and dear to you. And as your representative, I felt kind of betrayed, let down, in the fact that I was there for you and presented something great for you, and you weren't there. You let me down. I'm looking at having these things quarterly now, and I'm going to try to get the folks here to vote on that this evening, if I can get their approval on it. I want for you to be able to have a voice and to be able to see what we're actually doing and to get the whole picture. That way we can work as a community together and make this issue a non-issue. I've got a lot of great visions in this village right now, and I can't do it with any money, no money, okay, and no police action. If I have no police officers, I can't do anything, okay? I've got a lot of stuff in the park going on. I'd like to get some concerts going down there, some small drinking functions, nothing, you know, where people get sloshing drunk and running around naked, but, you know, this is something I've got envisioned. We're working on getting a sit-down restaurant in this village, and if we get a sit-down family-style restaurant in this village with alcohol in it, it's going to need police coverage, okay? Because there is going to be that occasional idiot that doesn't know how to control their liquor consumption. Anyways, these are a few things that I'm looking at right now, and I need your support on this, as much as I can get, okay? I'm against taxation, and the mayor will tell you point blank, I've been very boisterous on that. I'm against pulling money out of my pocket and pulling money out of your pockets, but there is a dire need right now, and I can guarantee there is, okay? And I need your support on this. I need our police officers on the street and policing the area and trying to run some of these druggies out of town if we can. Anyways, at this time, what I'm going to request is, you know, some input from my fellow council members on how they would feel about having this thing quarterly.
I think we should have it quarterly, and I think we should talk about the funding tonight, so.
I would agree with that. I think it went very well last night. I agree with you.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it was a very civil action, I think, and it was a very civil way of discussion, instead of getting into irate tirades and, you know, mad, you know, you're against me, I'm against you, that type of behavior. I'd rather have a civil discussion with people and offer solutions to the problem. And in this, I'm asking my council members to put this up for a vote right now to see if we can do this quarterly. And this last one being the first of the quarter, and we'll push on from 3 months from now and then so on and so forth. Can I get a motion for this?
I'll motion that we have the quarterly town hall meetings.
Second that.
Any other discussion about it?
Can I get some public input?
Can you call that roll, Mr. Gilpin? Hold on, let's call a roll.
Yes, public input?
Just 1 second.
Ready for roll call?
Yeah.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hollifield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
So you want to do this every 3 months, you said?
Every 3 months, correct.
Okay. All right.
And I forgot something in mind because I didn't realize to do it. Sorry, I'm still newbie. I promised the people that were there last night that they wanted to hear the discussion on the income tax, so we could have the discussion on the income tax, the 0.5% income tax. Could we do that? Is everybody okay with doing that tonight?
We're going to have legislation on it, discuss it then. Is that okay?
That's fine. I didn't know it was on there.
Yeah, it's on there if you look at it.
Scrolling.
Yeah.
C.
Yeah, I didn't. I was
Anything else?
jumbled.
And that's it on my side of things.
Ms. Shepherd?
Oh, Brian asked for
Mayor,
public.
can Chip come up and speak for a second?
We've actually already had public input, so.
No, not negative. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, can we pick a day that's not Wednesday when I got Bible studies?
I agree.
I really wish you guys with me tomorrow, or last night, but
We could probably do it on a Thursday evening.
Director, and I had that and then Bible study, so that's why I wasn't at your town hall, but I would have loved to be there.
I agree. Brother Bob knows why I wasn't at church
All right.
last night.
Well, that's a good statement,
So,
I agree.
just a recommendation.
Not Wednesdays.
All right, moving on, Ms. Shepherd?
Well, where do I start? My heart goes out to the fellow officers that have had the trauma in their lives this week, and most of you know I'm pretty close to that situation. I will always support the police, and I could be prejudiced, but that's the way I am. That's all I'm going to say.
All right, thanks, Ms. Shepherd.
I just want to thank the people, if anybody's here that was here last night, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming this evening. Thought it was very productive, as Brian said. But I think that we just need to settle the situation, and we need to move forward, and we need to grow. We need to continue with transparency, which I think the town hall meetings will help with. Mr. Noble has put together a communications committee, which is going to be taking off soon, and it involves members of the residents of the community. It involves members of our school board, village residents. Correct me, Joe, what am I missing?
Council member.
School
Mayor,
board, BBA, the Bethel Business Association. So Mr. Noble's worked very hard to put this together, and I think that's going to continue to show transparency and to educate people. And speaking on education, I would encourage you not to trust rumors, to ask questions. Don't just, if you see it on Facebook, if you hear it secondhand, okay, take it for what it's worth, and then do your research. Get your education on it, ask the questions, go straight to the source. Find out your answers yourself, and don't get caught up in that rumor mill, because I think that that has put this council in the situation it's been in the last 6 to 12 months. So I'm hoping to move forward from that and just to get away from it. We need police, we need growth in this village, and that only comes with revenue. So understand the decisions that we make are based on what is best for the community as a whole, and to grow our village and to move it forward productively, okay, and fairly to everyone. Whatever rumor was said about a 1%, no, it's not what we're discussing here tonight. We're discussing putting back on what was in place before, which was enough to fund our village and get us where we want to be, all right? And on a positive note, our high school tournaments for basketball are in Wilmington for the girls and Western Brown for the boys starting this weekend. And our 8th grade basketball team, our boys basketball team, is in the championship at Georgetown tonight at 7:30. So hopefully we wrap it up and I can go watch my students play and win. So that's all I have. Thank you again for coming.
Thanks, Ms. Hoffman. Ms. Ross?
Thank you. I'll try to keep it brief. Something that has come to mind for me recently is perspective. I'm from Bethel. Good evening. And this is going to be hard for me, so I apologize. And I moved back to Bethel 5 years ago to raise my family here. My daughter's in 4th grade. My son is a kindergartner. And my husband is a deputy sheriff. The events that took place 2 weeks ago was very close to my family. It's a tragedy that my family has been trying to work through, and it's been very hard on us. I say the word perspective because it has put the last year, for what I do here on council, to help this village into perspective. I support the police 100%. I mean, that's, for me, very obvious. But when you put into perspective what our police officers do and the dangers that they face, the 0.5% to me is a small price to pay for them. I know that, you know, I will be forever grateful for the police, my local police and our county police, and it's just, you know, I hate to say that my opinion has changed, but it has. I mean, perspective, living the last couple of weeks and being so close to a situation, thinking that we're up here arguing with everyone, and I'm trying to fight to do what's right for the people in this village, but also do what's right for my family and for the people in this village, for the children in this village, and for to help this village grow, which is also very important to me. So I didn't say anything last night. It's kind of hard on me, so I apologize for that. I really do. But that's just something that has been, it's kind of hit me hard. So I want you guys to think about that. You know, I don't like to spend the money. I don't like taxes. I pay Batavia 1%. My husband and I both do. We paid Bethel 0.5%, both of us. So, you know, we own a home, so we pay property taxes. I mean, we pay all the taxes. And so, I mean, it hits us everywhere. And I don't like it, but, I mean, this is where we live. We should be proud of our village, and I think that is our job. You know, someone said last night, what about your oath? So I got my oath out, and, you know, it says to my best of my ability. And I feel like the last year I've tried. I feel like my council members have tried to the best of our ability to try to find the money. We've tried to find it somewhere else. I don't know how else, I don't know what else we can do. We have to have police. I mean, I can just tell you that how important it is. I hope that the police are there so no one in this village has to go through what my family has gone through in the last 2 weeks. So that's pretty much the best I can.
Appreciate you, Ms. Ross.
Thank you.
Mr. Noble?
I got two things. The first one, I would like to update on the Communications Commission. Making some headway on it, but there's a few little roadblocks, and I'm not sure if I talk out of turn on this, please stop me and correct me, but when we first started this, there wasn't really a committee to discuss it, to recommend it to us, full council, so I don't know if I'm recommending from the 2B committee or just putting it on the floor, but we have had some, I've had some lengthy discussions with the school board, David Brannick, and the purpose for additional seating on the committee is not to outweigh any kind of votes or recommendations. It's simply because they feel that it's a very important piece, and anything that they do as a board, when they do it, they set it up as a committee, and all their committees have two, and they want to pull this into themselves like a committee so they can officially use the information that they get. And then they also had mentioned that there's a big percentage of the school district that's in the township, and we don't have a seat or room for a township trustee or someone from the township to represent, and they were kind of concerned about that, and I agree with that. I think that that may be an important piece, so I would like to, if I can, I gotta go to the school board meeting on the 26th, so I can let them know yay or nay, if we can accept that or not, and if we can or cannot, then they'll make their decisions on if they want to participate or not. If they do participate, they're going to make a vote, and then I'll get the names, and then we'll finalize this next meeting. But what I would like to ask is if we can discuss this or put a motion on the floor to amend that membership to add another school board seat and a township seat I would appreciate it.
Jay, what is the ordinance states the purpose of this is to make recommendations to the village?
I thought it was to communicate recommendations of what to do.
Well, in my mind, how it would work is we would gather, and we would select our chair and our secretary, and then we would have discussions, and we would take things back to our corresponding board and let them know what was discussed. If we hit on something big, then it might be something that we could bring in to, implement or not implement. But it's basically, in my mind, it's more information gathering and communicating. So, I mean, when we go around the room for call members, we might be able to let people know, hey, we've got a financial issue coming up, or we have a levy coming up, or we have some needs for some volunteers, or we need to learn how to communicate and make, to get out to the public with true information and not, that way everyone's kind of on the same page. So, and to me, we're kind of embarking on something new, so it may morph into something great, or it may just, if we don't try, we're never going to invent the light bulb. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. So, and I think it's a good piece of a puzzle officially by all the entities to represent. So, I'm not sure, Emily, if you have any input on that. I know that kind of went off.
My suggestion was that council discuss whether or not it wanted to make changes to the ordinance before we present anything, so that it could be fully vetted before legislation was prepared.
So we would say if we were like yay or nay tonight?
Yeah, we could have a discussion, and whatever direction council gives is how we will proceed with legislation.
Sounds like we may need to reword the purpose of the commission as opposed to what it currently states.
Yeah, because you have in here two issues of local concern and undertakings of village government, assist and development mechanisms to keep residents advised of village issues through the use of a newsletter. So how does a trustee play into that? I'm trying to figure out.
Well, I think that maybe what needs to be tweaked or reworded, maybe, I'm not sure, but
Well, I thought the original plan was to have communication within the village. So including the township in that would be, I'm not sure how that would work.
Could we replace village with community and just solve the whole problem, and then it's still working together as a community to maybe help vocalize when school board meetings are and things like that, so people know how to be active? I don't know.
I mean, this is a total council decision, so, you can amend this, as you see fit.
My understanding was it was just to give out the information that was going on in the village to those different entities so it would be spread quicker. So more people would be able to get their hands on the information that was going on. So maybe my understanding was incorrect in the beginning as well.
The correct information also.
Yes, the correct information.
That's what it says. It said enhance communication between village and its residents on issues of local concern and undertakings of village government.
And I agree that the township, because I used to live in the township, but I was from Bethel. This was my village. I just my residence wasn't here. So, I would agree that maybe encompassing a little bit of letting the township know what was going on in their village, because they have ownership of this too. They just don't live here. So I would agree with that to a point that maybe we could incorporate the township to be available for the information, but I thought it was just for the dissemination of the information.
I don't know, we have...
Does Dr. Shula have something to add?
Is he allowed to speak?
Sure.
As a school board member, and as I've mentioned before when I've come here, communication is extremely important. And communication with the school district, the council, and the township, for us, is very important. And then we're doing clear communication, because you're having fiscal issues, okay? The Board of Education has passed an issue a few years ago. We're going to be looking to the future for where our fiscal needs are, as well as the township. So when I got elected, and we've had meetings in the community over here, the community said, why don't the three of you guys work together and talk to each other? And so when it came to our attention about this communication commission, I thought that was great, because I've been trying to get our Board of Education, I've invited council members as well as trustees to come to our board meeting so we can talk about issues. And when we discussed it at our board meeting, you can have 2 board members on committees, and at the Board of Education, when we have committees which are made up of 2 members, that does not violate the Sunshine Law. And so when we were talking about this communication issue, I said I would be interested in helping out. I know Dave Braddock might be interested, and so we have not taken any board action. There's 3 other board members, we haven't really had a lot of discussion about it. But it's about communication. And I want to add also to this police department, when I was superintendent of schools, was so important and so key. You know, we've got schools in this community over here, and safety is a major concern of our parents, and that we're providing it. And we made a number of changes this past year to improve on safety conditions in our schools. And when I was superintendent, all I had to do was pick up the phone, and they were there. And our community needs a police department over here. That's right. And I commend you all for what you do on a regular basis for the safety of our community. That's my bias.
Thank you, Dr. Schul.
How we can communicate, that's what we're looking at, how we can communicate better is.
All right, thanks.
If I could just add, I mean, I think really in terms of guiding you guys as to what you want to do, I think you kind of had there's 2 different avenues you could take. The first would be to go ahead and establish the committee, see how it functions, if it's functioning, fulfilling kind of what your goals were. They can, see if it then makes sense to add or not add additional membership. The other choice would be to kind of take a step back, take a look at the purpose, purpose of the commission, and decide whether or not it would be more beneficial to have additional voices on it now, knowing that, it can always be changed. But I guess the question is, do you want to start with something a little different, or do you want to start with kind of what your initial concept was and see if there is how it works, and if there's a better concept once it starts operating? So it's
You want to get it going now?
Well, I want to get it going, but the problem is I have an unfilled seat because they can't vote until the 26th, and it's kind of, if I can get them to give me at least one name temporarily until we see how it works, then that's fine, but...
Yeah, we don't need to appoint everyone. I mean, we could appoint all but the 1 seat tonight if that's what you wanted to do, or we could appoint them all next month. I mean, it just depends on how the council wants to handle it.
In other words, meet shy of one person, but still have a meeting of the commission, but shy of one
Or
member.
you can appoint, frankly, you could decide to appoint you could defer that decision to the school board. You could say, we appoint whoever is designated by the school board to that position. So you don't necessarily have to have their name.
I mean, that's kind of what the BBA was wanting to do also, but they finally decided on one, but they said they wanted to rotate people in and out so that everyone can get a feel of what's going on in case someone got sick or something or whatever, so.
Can we word it generically like that it would be a school board member, a BBA member, and not exactly a name, but just a person of that organization?
Representative.
That's what it says right now.
So do we need specific names?
I would encourage you, to the extent you have specific names,
Okay.
to name specific people, but if there is a reason why, if the entity itself wants to take it upon itself to decide who would be best suited from that organization to make the appointment, I think you can do that also.
Well, I think that's what their desire is. I don't think they want us coming in and telling who's going to serve on that committee. I think they want to decide.
It was always set up that way.
Our board appointments are for an entire year. I mean, at our organizational meeting in January, we have all our committees assigned. We have 2 board members on each one of the committees. So if this is a committee, that's why we were saying, is there a possibility for
It's not an official committee of the school board, though, so.
Yeah,
I have why not, instead of making this a commission, have a communication committee of council, which would be 3 members of council, the communication committee of the school board, there would be 2 members of the school board, and then, 1 member of the township would also be able to meet without violating sunshine laws, and those 3 entities could meet on a regular basis to discuss topics of shared interest. I think that sounds like what the goal of this is, to share information between the 3 entities.
Can we throw in the BBA and the Ministry Society with that?
I mean, what you lose in that scenario is, we did have resident appointments in this ordinance as well. I mean, so it just kind of depends on what's the purpose and who do you want involved?
So, could we can we appoint who's here tonight and then add the other 2 our following meeting?
Yeah, you don't have to make all the appointments tonight, but I think you got to decide what
I'd
does
like
this...
to have a meeting eventually, I mean.
Right. So, you can decide to proceed with the committee as it's been, or the commission as it's been developed. You can take a step back and think and look at, maybe to Travis's point, or even the idea with adding additional seats, take a step back and decide, is there a better way to do it? But to your question, Janessa, no, you don't have to make all the appointments tonight. You can make some of them tonight, and the others at a later date. The question is if you want to meet before you make, if you want this commission to meet before you've made all the appointments. And you probably want to get it pretty well rounded out before they actually have a meeting.
Up to you. You did all the work on it.
I think he's...
I'm on the finance committee of the board, and I've checked with the Ohio School Board Association and legal counsel. We are going to be having a finance committee of the Board of Education. We do. And we're going to be also having 2 board members, also inviting community members to be a part of that, so that we can plan for the future, because we're setting a vision for our school district, and the lawyers had told us as well, you can have 2 school board members and invite committee members, and call it an advisory committee of the Board of Education, and that allows us to bring community members as well as board members to meet on a regular basis. So that's another model that's up for.
Well, I would at least like to, I got Leah Fields that came. She was one that was one of my recommendations for an appointment. And who else was?
The other guy was,
Last name Perry.
no, it wasn't Perry.
No, not Perry.
It was,
Well, since Leah's here, let's go ahead and vote on her and get her appointed.
I guess we could do that. That way she's came here for a reason, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'm looking for a motion to appoint Leah Fields for the resident.
I make a motion we appoint Leah Fields for our first resident nomination for the Communications Committee.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? Mr. Copeland, could you call the roll on that, please?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Holifield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Well, there we go, we had progress.
We got one.
We got one.
We have a committee of 1 now.
We got more than that.
That's true.
All 3.
Because we got volunteered.
And then changing the, since that's, what I'll do is I'll follow up with the school board and, on the 26th, and, put some thought into, sharing with them what we've decided. I think we just will stick with what we've got, and then we can make adjustments later, and recommend it from the committee level to us. And then we'll have the rest of the appointments next meeting, hopefully.
So the remaining appointments will be 1 resident position, the Bethel Tate School District, and the Bethel Business Association.
No, I've got the Bethel Business Association, I've appointed Mike Salvatore to that.
Yeah.
Mike
That
Salvatore.
actually needs to be appointed
So it
by
needs to be,
council.
yeah, council needs to vote on that.
Mike said he would do it.
I guess I'm looking for a motion to make Mike Salvatore also appointed for a seat on that committee.
So moved.
I'll second that.
There's Ms. Hollifield, and Ms. Brown. Call that roll.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
See, bigger progress.
Okay. So,
So one resident position in the school district.
For the BBA.
No.
That was a big deal.
that's the BDA.
Oh, you mean
We have one
Yeah,
listed on this.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
sorry, I
Sorry.
said that better.
I was thinking you meant tonight.
Mr. Noble, you are?
Yeah, I got one last thing. Appreciate the crowd. Thanks for coming out. Later in legislation, we're going to have to make a hard decision. And I just want everyone to know that me personally, and I know every council member here, has also soul searched and dug deep, and on my end, I've learned through my life not to trust anyone, period, no matter who you are. Get your facts and get the story straight on your own. And when I came in to take this seat, I learned really quickly to open my eyes and open my ears and take in all the information that I could from every angle, question everything that anyone had ever told me as far as their reasonings, and verify it, do third-party checks on everything. I even got in trouble once for that. So, and I also hear of late, after our decision in November, there's been several things that's happened. One of them is I've learned through the county that they have got a proposal for a new formula for distribution of local government funds, and it is to soon take more away from us. Back in the day, around the November or summer last year and prior to elections and everything, when you do the numbers, you may have been able to fill that need with a 4 mil levy if you didn't spend anything in any other areas and you've put everything toward the police. But since then, there's been a lot of other things that's influenced that. Healthcare rates have gone up. We're spending, just this year, we've had an increase of about $26,000 just on healthcare to provide to our officers. That's not fair that you send them on the street and you don't give them health care. They're protecting us. Add that in with some of the other miscellaneous things, and then what's came to light in the last 2 weeks, you can't really put a price on that. You don't want to send in our fire and EMS into a scene and have the police come 5 minutes later after everything's happened. They need to be there first, and the only way that we can guarantee that is to have them on the road all times. And it's one of those things where when we make this decision later, if it's not what you like, then that will be the one thing that you're going to have to hate me for. I can't not support this police. I can't do it. So, just wanted to say that. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mr. Newell. That brings us to legislation. First business on our legislation is ordinance 1907. It's an ordinance authorizing the village administrator to enter into a contract amendment with AEP Energy Partners, Inc., and to provide electric power to the village of Bethel for the years 2025 through 2027, and declaring an emergency. We'd have to waive the 3 reading rule on this evening.
I move we waive the 3 reading rule on ordinance 1907.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Ms. Shepherd and Ms. Brown. Would you call a roll, please, Mr. Gilpin?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
All right, now to adopt ordinance 1907, I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we adopt ordinance 1907.
Thank you. Ms. Ross, do I hear a second?
I second that.
Any discussion about this? Questions?
Could Travis elaborate on how this is actually going to save the village money? It's a better rate than we've gotten in the past from Duke.
Yeah, the energy rate is currently about 65 to 70% of the total cost of electricity, so this rate is going to drop the energy portion of our rate from 46.25 down to 42.65, so we will have that locked in. The capacity fees they go to auction every year, so the next auction will be in August, and that is, let's see, what year is the capacity? The next capacity auction is for 2022. Those fluctuate, so we won't know for a few years what the capacity is going to be for that time period, but at least we know that currently the largest portion of our energy contract will be at a lower rate than the prior years. So capacity affects the rate, also the transmission fees. Transmission fees have been flat, so at some point those could begin to increase as they are in other parts of the country. Also, we do lock in these rates with Ripley, the Village of Ripley and the Village of Hamersville. That allows all three entities to get a little better rate. So we are all going through this process at the same time, and we will all be ready to lock in the rate hopefully tomorrow.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I second that.
All right. Mr. Gilpin, call the roll, please.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Now to declare this an emergency, entertain a motion.
I move we declare ordinance 1907 an emergency.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Or Ms. Ross first. Would you call the roll, please, Mr. Gilpin?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
All right, so ordinance 1907 is adopted. Ordinance 1908 is an ordinance approving, adopting, and enacting American Legal Publishing's Ohio Basic Code to 2019 edition as the Code of Ordinances for the Village of Bethel, Ohio, and declaring an emergency as well. We have to waive the 3 on this as well.
I move we waive the 3 on ordinance 1908.
Thank you, Ms. Hollyfield. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Why don't you call the roll, please, Mr. Gilpin?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Thank you. Now to adopt ordinance 1908, I would entertain a motion.
I move we adopt ordinance 1908.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Do I hear a second?
I second that.
Thank you, Mr. Coogan. Is there any questions about this?
This is the police officer handbook, correct?
It's the law book. Every year, General Assembly in Columbus, they change some laws, change some wording, give a new number, so those have to be adopted.
All right.
Any other questions? Would you call the roll, please, Mr. Gilpin?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Now to declare an emergency, I'd entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we declare ordinance 1908 an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Second that.
Thank you, Mr. Noble. Would you call the roll, please, Mr. Gilpin?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
All right, ordinance 1908 is adopted. This moves us to ordinance number 1909. This is an ordinance levying a tax to provide funds for the purposes of a police department operations, including providing and maintaining motor vehicles, communications, other equipment, buildings, and sites for such buildings, and directly an operation of a police department for the payment of salaries of permanent or part-time police communications or administrative personnel to operate the same, including the payment of any employer contributions required for such personnel or for other related costs on all salaries, wages, commissions, and other compensation earned by residents of the Village of Bethel, on all salaries, wages, commissions, and other compensation earned by non-residents of the Village of Bethel for work done or services performed or rendered in the Village of Bethel, on net profits earned on all businesses, professions, or other activities conducted by residents of the Village of Bethel, on the net profits earned on all business, professions, or other activities conducted in the Village of Bethel by non-residents, and on the net profits earned by all corporations doing business in the Village of Bethel as a result of work done or services performed or rendered in the Village of Bethel, requiring the following: the returns and furnishing of information by employers and all those subject to said tax, imposing on employers the duty of collecting the tax at the source and paying the same to the Village of Bethel, providing for the administration, collection, and enforcement of said tax, declaring violation thereof to be a misdemeanor, and imposing penalties therefore for declaring and declaring an emergency. To do this tonight, we have to waive the three. Council.
I move we waive the three reading rule on ordinance 1909.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Holyfield. Would you call the roll, please, Mr. Goodman?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
No.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Holyfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
All right. Now, to adopt ordinance 1909, I entertain a motion.
I move we adopt ordinance 1909.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Holyfield. Ms. Shepherd, is there any questions, discussions?
I'd like to discuss it a little bit, just so that everybody's on the same page with this. This is the 0.5%, correct? It is not a 1%.
It's a 0.5%?
It's a 0.5%. It's what everybody was used to paying. It's not an increase. I firmly will tell you in an honest tone that this 0.5% is what we need at this time. This is enough to sustain us, and I promise you that my personal opinion on taxes is the lower I can get you them, and the less of them I can give you. I personally think I should do that. This is the best tax for the village. A resident reached out and asked me, compared to the 4 mil levy, which would have provided you part-time police for a short amount of time. Eventually, we would have ran out that way too, to where it would have just dwindled them down in numbers. With the 0.5% earned income tax, it's one and done. The other, we would have had multiple levies, and this would have always hung over your head. There's only one way to get rid of this. You can't get rid of it by doing a charter. Amelia tried it. It doesn't work. It is state law. If you do not like this law being allowed for vote at council level only, I encourage you to go to Columbus and fight it at the state level. Unfortunately, the current circumstances, the way the world is, people aren't stopping committing crimes because we ask them nicely. People aren't being nice to their girlfriends or boyfriends and not beating them up because we ask them nicely. So we have to have cops. I would love not to, but this is necessary. It is needed, and it is what's best for the village. The resident asked me which of the two are the best. This is the best as far as providing you full-time coverage, 24/7. This is one and done. It's not hanging over your head. This is also best for the community as a whole, because each levy that goes on makes it hard for if the school would ever need a levy. We're working with the same monies. It's not new money. So it's best for our community as a whole that way as well. It's not easy. It's not hard. It's not one of those decisions that you can take lightly, and it's not something that I'm going to go home and I'm going to sleep and forget it. But it's also what I know that I have to do, because if a mother came in here and said, why was a police officer not able to respond in time to my daughter getting beaten to death, why the EMT had to stand outside, I'm the one who has to look at her, not you all. I am. And I also have to look at you too and know that I'm taking money from you. And this tax is the harder one on me. I am not doing myself any favors. This is, and I will give you both numbers for the levy for my house and this one, if anybody wants them. This is the harder tax for me, but it is necessary.
And I would agree with what Janessa said. This is also the harder tax on me and my husband and my family.
Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yeah, I wasn't finished. I just was
go
letting
ahead.
no, it wasn't you. I was just letting the public say what they wanted to say. But it is also not just for our police. Not that I don't support our police 100%. We have to have this levy to keep our police. But we also have to
Can I
have
have
this...
quiet, guys? She's talking. Can I have quiet, please?
We also have to have this income tax to do the storm drains that Travis was showing you with the culverts. We've had roads that have not been touched or fixed in 20, 30 years because we have not been able to take care of them as a village. We've repeatedly told you we're losing that state money. We are again losing it, even more of it in a couple of years, and I guarantee you in 10 years it's going to be gone. They're not going to give us anything. We are at 80,000 now. We are dropping to 30,000 in the next 2 years. They're taking $50,000 more away from our village. We, as the residents of this village, if we want to see it grow, continue to grow and get bigger and better, we have to give the revenue that's going to keep it going. It's not coming from anywhere else. But we've all told you, we've looked, we've beat down doors, we've done our homework. It is not coming from anywhere else, okay? I have been very vocal about I wanted to provide full-time 24/7 police coverage, and I wanted to see this village grow. And as Stephanie said, Ms. Ross said, a gentleman said to us last night, what was your oath? And I took the oath to do what was for the best of this village, for the welfare of the residents in this village. And I honestly believe that that is what I am doing with my vote this evening. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just want to say to you guys, I will apologize to you as well, because I know there's at least a few of you in the audience that I am going to disappoint with any decision I make. Either way, there are people who are anti either tax. They just would rather have no police. And I'm sorry, because I know you believe in your heart of hearts that that's the best thing, that you don't see the value in it, but other people do see the value in it. So this is I'm sorry to all you that are going to be disappointed no matter which way I go.
Anything else?
I just have one question. There was a short discussion last night about whether or not we would do the 0.5% that we've had in the past, or do a 1% with a 50% credit. I wanted to, but that credit is only available to a person to a resident.
No,
Is that correct?
It would be yes, because where you work takes precedence. If you're
Okay.
paying it in two places, wherever you work takes precedence, so there wouldn't be a credit where you work. The credit would only apply to where you live, which translates into, of course, being a resident.
There's no support for that up here, so.
Okay.
The only, if I may.
Go ahead.
And it's just like I said when I had call members, the idealism of taking a couple steps back and possibly, if we were lucky, go 3/4 time police and try to build back up over the next couple of years by doing levies and so forth. That would have been a slow way of doing things with the new light of them taking more money from us from the local government funds. And I'm not sure if everyone kind of knows, it's kind of, the local government funds, from the way I understand it, they disperse it from the state to the county, and then the county redistributes what they think that everyone should get. So if they decide that they want to send some extra to Milford or to a township or something like that, then they take it from the smaller places. So they've got that new formula at the county now that is going to make that effect to where we're going to lose that $50,000 a year. So with me trying to figure out every single way of tightening the budgets on everything, the best that we could have done for maybe just this year, maybe stretching it to the following year if we were lucky, would be 3/4 time police. And that means gaps in coverage. That means, you know, maybe even additional gaps, because if we're missing 5 shifts a week or more on a normal schedule, then when someone takes a vacation or sick day, there's no coverage. So we might have 10 shifts out of the week not covered. You know, I mean, it just depends on how it all works out, where we have to pay the overtime, which will be more money. But readjusting and going back to this, I think that kind of protects us in the future as far as having ability to make changes. If something happens and we passed levies and we maybe came into a situation where we couldn't hire any police officers so they didn't want to come here and deal with this drama. And we got down to just one or two and we were forced to make a change to go with a contracted sheriff. We can't use that levy money to pay them. That levy money is only designed and stricken to pay a local police department. If we, you know, if we go back to the income tax, if something like that would happen, then that money can be used to do a contracted sheriff in the future if we needed to. Or if expenses got way out of hand and it was $1 million to run a full-time police department, you know, 10 years from now, then the future council could make a decision later because them funds are able to be used for multiple reasons, not just like the levy would be. So, I mean, it's a tough situation to be in, and then sometimes you just have to make those calls. And if any, like Janessa said, if anyone has any other ideas, or if you want to run and take one of our seats because you don't like our decision, then, I mean, I think all of us are fair game to say, go ahead. I mean, to try it, because I've tried. I've really, really tried. And these guys can tell me that I've ran them through the mill and all this stuff. I mean,
Let me say something.
No, we're not. No, public input is closed, sorry.
Closed, okay. It wasn't gonna be bad.
Mr. Gilpin, call roll, please. I'm sorry.
I know, I just want to clarify something. I know that it's next on the list, but just for everyone in the audience, we had decided last meeting at putting a levy on, and that's kind of what we were going in between. But if council decides to do this instead, the levy would not go forward, is that correct?
Correct.
So there
It dies tonight.
there would be no levy on the ballot. The money, we would not spend the money to put the levy on the ballot, is that correct?
Yes, the next piece of legislation is to rescind the ordinance that I took to the Board of Elections.
But that wouldn't, so we would not be out of pocket any money?
I was told we had till February 19th to notify the Board of Elections. If we did so before then, there would be no cost.
And how much what would that cost be?
Was a little under $4,000.
Okay, I just want to make that clarification.
Good job.
Sorry.
Anybody else? Mr. Gilpin, call the roll, please.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hollifield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
All right, now to declare an emergency, I'd entertain a motion.
I move we declare ordinance 1909 an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Do I hear a second?
I will second that.
Then Ms. Hollifield, call the roll, please. Mr. Gilpin?
I'm sorry, it was a little slow.
That's all right.
Can we repeat who the first and the second was, please?
Ms. Shepherd.
Ms. Shepherd and Ms. Hollifield.
Okay. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hollifield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ordinance 1909 is adopted. Ordinance 1910 is an ordinance of repealing ordinance number 1906 and directing the fiscal officer to advise the Claremont County Board of Elections to refrain from placing a tax levy for expenses related to Operation Police Department on the May 2019 ballot and declaring this an emergency. We need to waive the 3 on this as well.
Make a motion, we waive the 3 on ordinance 1910.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Do I- And Mr. Noble. Call the roll, please, Mr. Gilpin.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hollifield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
All right, now to adopt ordinance 1910, I'd entertain a motion.
I move we adopt ordinance 1910.
Thank you, Ms. Hollifield. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Any discussion?
And just so that you're clear, the 4 mill levy had been on before and failed at vote. It wasn't a new millage. It was just, it had already failed at vote. It was going to cost money that people didn't feel we were being good stewards by putting it on when we knew that it was a 3-time failure. So,
Anything else?
no.
Mr. Gilpin, call the roll, please.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yeah.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hollifield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Now declare an emergency, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Holyfield. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
I heard Ms. Brown first. Please call a roll, please, Mr. Gilpin.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Holyfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
All right, thanks. That brings us to approval of expenses. I trust you've seen those. I entertain a motion to accept those as read.
I move we accept the approval of expenses as written.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Do I hear a second?
Second that.
Thank you, Mr. Noble. Call a roll, please, Mr. Gilpin.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Holyfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
All right, now to pay our bills. I entertain we pay our bills.
We pay our bills?
Thank you, Ms. Holyfield. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Ms. Brown, call a roll, please, Mr. Gilpin.
It's Ms. Holyfield and Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Holyfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
That brings us to adjournment. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
We have a hearing at 7 for the easements.
Yes.
I move we adjourn. Is that what we're waiting for? Okay.
Yeah.
I move we
Do I hear a
adjourn.
second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.
Celebrating for.
We got the second.
No, we can go ahead and swear in.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
It's always 5:30.
Decision. Did not change.
Does our website say 6:30 for the meeting you start?
We changed it to 5.
No, it's 5:30.
It's 5:30.
That's weird. I apologize.
You'd be there, wouldn't you? I hear you. People talking there. Yeah.
I didn't mean you. I didn't mean you at all.
I thought you were done. No, that's good. I like your stop. Welcome to the crap store. Just kidding. I asked about it. That's true.
My sergeant's ready to go.
Well, when they come
Just wanted to,
you know what? I've spent, well, you can see what happens here with our people that have got those initiative papers to repeal it, already printed.